I don't know where you are at on your path or your plan for becoming as successful as you are capable of becoming. And we don't ever really know just how successful that you or I am capable of becoming. It's true, I went on a short 500-mile walk across northern Spain. It's called the Camino de Santiago. Are any of you familiar with the Camino? A little 500-mile walk across Spain. People have been walking the Camino for over 1,000 years. It's one of the three great pilgrimages of the world: Rome, Jerusalem, and Santiago in northern Spain. And I walked it in the fall of 2008, but let me set the stage for you on this journey. I had just completed my term of service as president of the National Speakers Association, a group of 3,600 speakers and no listeners, which essentially means that when one of our members has a problem, they have no trouble articulating it to the president. It was the greatest probably year of my career, one of the most grueling experiences. It's a volunteer position to serve as president. I was still needing to grow my business as well. I spoke in 30 states and 5 countries around the world in a 12-month period. Needless to say, I put together an amazing team. We broke a number of records. I'm very, very proud of what my team did during my term of service. But when our convention was over in New York City in August, early August of 2008, I turned it off and thought that I would just go back home to Minneapolis for a long weekend and rest up, and then I'd be back to work. And 30 days later, I still had nothing. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be burned out. And I don't know if you have ever had that experience where you were just on fumes. You really didn't have anything left to give. And 30 days later, I shaved my head bald. I thought that would be a cool thing to do. I always wanted to do that. And I shaved my head bald. I put on a backpack for the first time in my life. And what do you suppose happens when you put on a backpack for the first time? What do you tend to do? Chafe? Take it off? What else? Lean forward. You put too much in it. You pack too much. I had been planning this 500-mile walk for 2 years, but for 2 years it was a romantic stroll through Spain. With 30 days to go, the horror of it all began to set in. And I'll never forget that morning when I was to do my final packing and fly to Spain. It was as if my brain went out my ear, and I just started grabbing things. 5 books. I mean, I thought I'll catch up on my reading along the way. I mean, other things, it's like there are no stores in Spain. I even bought a mini backpack at the airport that I thought I will figure out how to tie it onto my primary backpack. I mean, I had jumbo everything from Costco. And I flew to Paris, France, and I took a train down to a little village in southern France called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, the most popular starting place for the Camino. People have been walking the Camino for over 1,000 years. And I couldn't believe that I was here, and the Camino doesn't break you in gently. You're up and over 3 mountains in 30 days, and day 1 is physically the most grueling day of the entire experience. You're not even leaving the little village of Saint Jean, and you're already starting to ascend Mount Le Peter. And I began to walk, and it had started to rain. It was raining on day 1, and I had, big backpack back on. I had little backpack tied on to the big backpack. And, I walked and I walked and I walked, and I couldn't believe how challenging it was. And I hadn't even gone 2 miles, and I thought I was going to die. And I began to think, if people have been walking the Camino for over 1,000 years, if I was a farmer along this way or this path, I would set up a bench alongside the road, maybe serve lemonade or iced tea. People come from all over the world to walk the Camino. Do you know that I hadn't gone another 100 yards around a bend, and there was a bench alongside the road? And I couldn't believe that I was stopping after just 2 miles. And the bench was actually set back a bit in the ditch. And I went back to this bench, and I took my backpack off, the little one, the big one, and I couldn't believe that I was in pretty good shape. I was a champion wrestler in high school. I'd been training for this, and I'm dying after just 2 lousy miles. And I took my backpacks off and sat in rain coming down, and I began to think about my life and my work, and when all of a sudden it hit me. I had 498 miles to go. And that is instant depression. And I began to immediately think about all the ways that I could get out of this. Maybe I can just walk 2 miles back and take a bus to Barcelona and just hang out for 5 weeks. No one would ever know. And I don't know how long I sat on that bench in the rain, and I hadn't started crying yet. But all of a sudden I stood up and I put on my backpack, and 33 days later, and over 500 miles and over 1 million steps across northern Spain, I arrived in front of the Cathedral of Santiago. It was clearly the most grueling and the most profound experience of my life. But let me take you back to that first day again, when I had gone up and over Mount Lepeter, and I arrived in a village called Roncesvalles, and I was to stay in a converted monastery that evening. That is a refugio or a hostel for registered walkers of the Camino. About $5 a night is the fee to stay in one of these refugios. And I didn't really know what to expect. And I walked in and I showed them my walker's or my pilgrim's passport, and they stamped it. I paid my $5. And I said, where would my room be? And they said, well, turn around, buddy, and have at it. And I turned around, and there were 60 bunk beds in one room. 60 bunk beds full that night. Now, if you do the math, that's 120 people ages 20 to 70 in one room overnight. That is a symphony of sounds like you can't imagine during the night, and it was the best $5 that I ever spent. But that evening I was having dinner with about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 other walkers, and we're all scared. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're in for. We don't know what we're going to learn or experience. And I'll never forget, there were these 3 women from England there. Now, I was there to walk the Camino in one stretch. A lot of people from Europe will do it in stages. They'll do 1 week a year for 5 years. And this small group of 3 women from England, this was their third year, third stage. And there was one woman in particular, her name was Judith. And she didn't look like a walker. Now, I didn't tell her that. I mean, that's your inner voice. Here I was in pretty good shape, and I'm dying after 1 day. And I look at Judith and I think, well, this is you know the drill, but you don't look like you're up for a 500-mile walk. And we started to chat, and I said, Judith, do you have any advice for me? And Judith looked at me and she said, Mark, I know one thing, that no matter how badly your feet are bruised and blistered and bleeding, and they did, she said, you can always take one more step. Now, I've been a member of the National Speakers Association for 34 years. I joined when I was 21. It was always my dream to be a professional speaker. I have grown up and I have listened to and I have learned from and lunched with the best of the best. Norman Vincent Peale, Og Mandino, Jack LaLanne, Art Linkletter, Marilyn Vandiver, Ira Hayes, Cavett Robert, Jim Tunney. I mean, these are all my heroes. I've heard every miserable motivational quote in the history of the world. Zig Ziglar, see you at the top. Nothing compares to the words of the great Judith. You can always take one more step. And I hung on to that one more step for over 1 million steps across northern Spain. I don't know where you are at on your path, or your plan, or your journey, or your quest, or your Camino. Camino is Spanish for way. I don't know where you are at to becoming as successful as you are capable of becoming. But how many of you might be in a position to need to accelerate something in your life? You want to accelerate the growth of your business or your practice, or you want to make something great happen, but it's like, I need to get off the dime. I need to make this happen. Any of you, by a show of hands? Okay, if you need to accelerate something to happen, would you please just stand? I'm not going to have you do anything crazy, but if you would just stand for a moment and just hold up one hand, one finger, and repeat after me. This is what I refer to as my storm starter strategy. If you need to accelerate your results and make something great happen in your life or your work, repeat after me. Shake it out a little bit. Okay. Hold up one finger. Repeat after me. Make one business development call a day. One a day, one a day, one a day. Just like my vitamins. One a day, one a day, one a day. All right, give yourself and each other a round of applause. Go ahead and sit down. Is that it, Mark? That's all I have to do to accelerate my results? That's it, baby. That's all you've got to do. If you make a commitment to make one true business development call a day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, for the next 12 months, I will guarantee you 12 months from now, you and I will have an exciting conversation. I refer to that as my storm starter strategy. But here's the rub. You would never take a week's worth of vitamins on a Monday. You'd never look at your calendar and say, you know, I'm traveling this week, I'm kind of busy, I'm going to make my 5 storm starter calls today on Monday. You'd never take a week's worth of vitamins on a Monday, would you? Nor would you go on vacation, forget your vitamins, and get home and say, oh my gosh, I forgot my vitamins while I was on vacation. 10 days of vitamins. I need to catch up on my vitamins. Would you do that? Of course you wouldn't. And so the most important thing you will ever hear come from my lips is no plus or minus carryover. No plus or minus carryover. We live in a world of plus and minus carryover in all areas of our life and our work. But if you get into the habit of what I call resetting your counters to 0 every 24 hours, it becomes easier to reset your counters to 0 every week. If you get into the habit of resetting your counters to 0 every week, it becomes easier to reset your counters to 0 every 30 days. Every 30 days. And that is the secret to your success. The secret to your success lies in the phrase, every 30 days. Yes, if you make one business development call on Monday, you reset your counters to 0, and Could you make 3 on Tuesday? Sure. But you reset your counters to 0, you look for how many on Wednesday? 1. You skip Wednesday for whatever reason, how many do you make on Thursday? 1. 1 a day, 1 a day, 1 a day, just like your vitamins. 1 more step, 1 a day, reset your counters to 0 every 30 days. Create a snapshot of a model month and create a path and a plan to be at or near your model month every 30 days. And you will have a greater likelihood of getting wherever you want to go. It was not long ago, in fact, just recently, I celebrated my 3rd wedding anniversary. I think that's worth some applause. I mean, I know 3 is not that long, but in 2004, unfortunately, my marriage of 19 years came to an end, and I found myself separated and soon to be divorced. Some of you know what that is like. I mean, some of us have had that, what we call a practice marriage. And I found myself on my own, and for the next 8 years, I dated like a lot of people in my shoes, would. I dated. I had women referred to me. I met women. I was online, and I was doing Match.com. And it was July 23rd of 2011 when I went on the most horrific date in the history of the universe. And I thought, that's it. I'm done. I am done. I'm going to be single and celibate for the rest of my life. And then I thought, well, maybe not celibate, but I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. And I went online and I thought, I'm going to cancel my subscription. I'm going to hide my profile. I am done. And I went online and I thought, I'm going to hit search one more time. And I hit search, and whoosh, up popped Sweet Anne. And I knew I was going to marry her. I knew it. It's like, I'm going to marry her. And I had seen she's attractive, but I had seen a lot of attractive women online, and it wasn't what she wrote in her profile. She didn't write that much. Her headline was "Laugh with Me." But I just knew. Some people know when they meet somebody that they're destined to be together. I knew when, and I hadn't even sent her an email yet or a wink. What do you suppose you write to the woman you're going to marry when she doesn't know you?
Definitely not that.
I didn't know. I didn't know what to write. And all I wrote, I didn't even say hello. I just wrote, "Where have you been?" And I signed my full name, and she gets this email, and "Where have you been?" Well, where have you been? But it intrigued her enough that she responded and said, "What do you mean, where have I been? In my life, in my work?" And I said, "Well, I'm sorry." I said, "What I meant to say was, how long have you been online?" Because I thought I knew every woman between 5'2" and 5'9" within 30 miles of 55401. I had the profile of my perfect fit all mapped out. "Did you just get online today?" And she wrote me back and she said, "No, I've been online for a long time." She had never popped up in my search criteria. And we met 5 days later in downtown Minneapolis, and it was game over. Took her a little bit longer. Not long, only about 10 days. And we just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. And if you ever get a chance to meet her, some of you know her, and Some of you have had the good fortune of being served by her. She's an amazing chef, and we love to have people in our home for dinner. And so if you come to Minneapolis, you're invited. You're invited. Now, I thank God every single day for Anne. Of course, I tell her I love her every single day. And I also made the deliberate decision a couple of years ago that every single day I look at her, or I text her, or I email her, and I simply say, thank you for loving me. It's amazing when your love is backed up with a shot of gratitude, because some days it's not that easy. I don't know about you, but some days I am not that easy. When you are in business for yourself, in fact, the other morning she said to me, she goes, you know, honey, just because you're speaking slower and louder doesn't necessarily mean that I'm hearing your message any more effectively. Some days it's just not that easy. Every day, Anne and I say a prayer together. We read from a little daily devotional, a little paragraph. We read that. It takes less than 30 seconds. And following that, we say a prayer for someone specifically by name. Less than a minute, 2 minutes every day. And that has become the foundation for our relationship and for who we are. And it also has become the foundation for my business, because it has driven the point home in ways that are incredibly difficult to comprehend unless you are in the game, that what you do every day is more important than what you do once in a while. You might want to write that one down. That was a good one. Every once in a while I say something good. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think that was a good one. I would jot that one down. What you do, do you like that one, Petty? What you do every day is more important than what you do once in a while. I don't know where you are at on your path or your plan for becoming as successful as you are capable of becoming. And when we look into the crystal ball, we don't know exactly what that vision or that future vision can really be for you and or for me. I know that when I was walking across Spain, the last maybe 100 kilometers or so, you begin to see a word painted on buildings and signs, and on the streets. You'll see this word, and you don't, I'd never seen this word. And the word is Ultreia. Ultreia, U-L-T-R-E-I-A. And what I found out shortly into that last segment, that Ultreia is Latin for keep going. Keep going. And it is almost as if the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that have walked the Camino over 1,000 years are high-fiving you, cheering you on, saying, keep going, you're almost there. I don't know where you are at on your path or your plan for becoming as successful as you are capable of becoming. But I leave you with a single word, Ultreia.